My name's Jillian, this is Emily. We are here on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation for our last episode of Beachcombers. Tomorrow, on Saturday, we're heading back up to Telegraph Cove to start work again at the Whale Interpretive Centre. So just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for tuning in every week and for following us on social media. And it's been a tough summer, start to the summer, but we're really excited to be seeing you guys in person again. Yeah, so hopefully lots of you will be coming up to visit us at Telegraph Cove. Of course, assuming that your provincial and city recommendations allow that. But some of you live outside of Canada, and as of this filming, the borders are still closed till close to the end of July. And so some of you won't be joining us this summer. Perhaps you're overseas, perhaps you're in the United States, or perhaps you're even on the other side of Canada, and traveling that far for reasons of pleasure is not recommended right now. So you're not joining us. So we will still be continuing this segment, but in a little different form. We're shifting from Beachcombers to Cove Combers. And so we will be continuing to do videos, lots taking place in the museum, more focused on our specimens, but some may still be out and about in the woods or on the beach or kind of whatever. Maybe if we get some wildlife around, we can hopefully share that with you, stuff like that. So not exactly sure what we're going to be doing up there, but we will still be doing some sort of video program so that you can continue to join us throughout the summer. So to prepare for being back in the museum and answering questions, we've compiled 8 of our most commonly asked questions, and we're going to go back and forth asking them. Yeah, we really need this practice. It's been a long time since anyone's asked us anything. Yeah, it's been a really long time. So we've got our Whale Interpretive Centre ball cap, and we're gonna draw. Alright, here, let's see what Jillian gets. What is Robson Bight? Robson Bight Ecological Reserve is a spot on eastern Vancouver Island that is reserved for the northern resident killer whales. This is one of the most common sites for northern resident killer whales to come up and rub on the beach. Another site is at Bear Point on Malcolm Island. And because this is quite a unique behavior, we don't see it anywhere else except for on Vancouver Island and the surrounding islands. It's something that we really want to preserve, and so it's closed to all foot traffic and recreational boat traffic. And so in the 90s it was decided there needed to be an education center to educate the public on Robson Bight and these amazing animals, and so that's where we came in. That's the Johnson Strait Killer Whale Interpretive Centre Society. That's the WIC. So this is actually really important to us because we wouldn't be here without this preserve. A lot of people ask, well, why do they rub their bellies? That's still a mystery. There's a few different theories, yeah, Jillian, I think you nailed that one. I think we're ready. All right, your turn. I'll draw for you. Yep, go ahead, draw. Do humpback whales live in groups? So if you come whale watching out of Telegraph Cove, you have a very good chance of seeing sometimes multiple humpback whales on one trip, and sometimes they're really close together. And so a lot of people might assume that that means that they travel together, but that is not necessarily the case. So mom and calf will stay together for some amount of time while the mom teaches the calf how to feed and how to exist as a humpback whale, but they will go their separate ways, unlike the northern resident killer whales. The short answer is no, they don't travel in groups, but you have a good chance, other than mom and calf, but you do have a chance to see many in one area because they're all drawn by the common look for food. And so an analogy we use in the Whale Interpretive Centre is, imagine you walk into a restaurant and you see, this is of course pre-COVID times, and it's a crowded restaurant, so before the time of social distancing, and you look around the restaurant and there's tons of people, and you wouldn't assume that all of those people are traveling in a group. They're all just there for the food. And so that's a little bit like what we see on northern Vancouver Island, is that we get lots of humpbacks there. They're there for the food, but they're not one group of humpbacks. They might, be around each other and maybe even display social behaviors, but they're not always together. Yeah, even up in Alaska, you'll see the group bubble net feeding, but this still isn't a group of humpbacks traveling together. They're just feeding together. And they do use teamwork, evidence suggests, but
that doesn't mean that they are, close bonds like we sometimes see with killer whales. No.
All right. Let's see, I'll draw for you here.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a killer whale and an orca? This is one of my favorite questions.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so they are both correct names for killer whales. It's the same species.
Same animal, same creature.
Orcanis orca is the Latin, the scientific name, and both have some negative connotations. So a lot of people try and get away from killer whale by using orca because they think it's a nicer name. However, Orcanis orca quite literally translates to fish from the underworld or a demon from the underworld. It's not nice either.
No, so people actually will get mad at us for saying killer whale. Like, you shouldn't say killer whale, you should say orca. And we always kind of like, oh, do you know what orca means?
Yeah, because killer whale comes from killer of whales, and that is accurate.
For some of them, at least.
Yeah, for numerous ecotypes of killer whales, they will be preying on other whales. So that is where the name comes from, and there is some truth to that. Orcanis orca, in the literal definition, is not accurate. However, because it is the scientific name for it, that is acceptable for sure and widely used.
So you can use both. The only one that's kind of not really so good is orca whale, because killer whales are the largest species of dolphin. They're not a whale. And so killer of whales, they do kill whales, that's where that comes from, but they're not a whale. So orca, fine. Killer whale, fine. Orca whale, not fine. All right, next one.
Yep.
Can you draw for me?
Yep. What is the difference between resident and Biggs killer whales?
So this is a good question to follow up our last question. So killer whale and orca are the same thing, but within killer whale / orca, there's many different ecotypes. And these are animals that are genetically different, and socially different, linguistically different, dietarily different. So they're really, really different. So with Biggs and residents, we're looking at Biggs killer whales being mammal-eating killer whales, usually being in smaller groups, speaking a different dialect and generally being quieter and having some different behaviors dictated by what they eat. With resident killer whales, these are salmon-eating killer whales, and salmon don't have good hearing. So the salmon-eating killer whales, the resident killer whales, can be in bigger groups, they can be noisier, chattier, and can also kind of be more playful at times, although we don't want to anthropomorphize, but they can kind of do some neat surface behaviors, because Biggs killer whales are trying to be sneaky, and so if a seal's sitting on a rock and sees them making a big splash at the surface, they give up their sneakiness. But so they're just two different ecotypes, and we can see them both off northern Vancouver Island, and they look identical to one another. Markings wise, you kind of think to yourself, oh, I've never seen different killer whales. You actually have, because just visually, unless you have an identification photo, they're visually not different from one another. Both black and white, big straight dorsal fin. Looks about the same.
Yeah, the Biggs killer whales do have a larger range. They're going to be going all the way from California to Alaska. The residents there, it gets even more complicated. There's two types of residents, the northern residents and the southern residents.
Which are also genetically distinct. They don't breed together.
Yeah. But the northern residents are only going to be, on average, from kind of Campbell River up to Alaska, and the southern residents are going to be from about Washington State, sometimes down to California, but about Washington State up to Nanaimo, Campbell River area.
And of course, there's no ocean, there's no fences in the oceans.
No.
They can go wherever they want. These are just averages.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to know more about this, we actually have a video just all about the different ecotypes. We've posted it on the WIC Clips playlist on the Facebook page, or you can check out our YouTube page.
It's
and
on
just
Instagram too.
Yeah, under the different ecotypes is what the video is called. So check that out, or visit the Whale Interpretive Centre if you can, and we can talk all day about this.
Yeah.
All right, I'll draw for you.
Mm-hmm.
See what do we got here. Oh, 3 of our favorites. What time do we let the whales out? When do the whales jump? Can we still see the whales when it's raining?
Where to even start?
Well, let's start with the first one. What time do we let the whales out?
We don't. These are wild animals. They are going to be doing whatever they please, going all over the place. Oftentimes, people come whale watching with the misunderstanding that these animals are either fed by us and therefore we have some control over them, or we've trained them, or something like that. Not at all. They're completely wild animals. They're just out there doing their thing, and sometimes we're lucky enough to encounter them.
Yeah, like people will say, oh, they put on a show for us today, and of course that's just a phrase, but we always kind of want to say, well, no, they were just doing what they were doing and you were lucky enough to see it. So it's all about luck. It's all about being there at the right place, right time, and you could see everything or you could see nothing but seagulls. Hard to say. All right, next question. When do the whales jump? Same answer.
They, yeah,
Whenever they want. Can we still see whales if it's raining? This is a fair question.
Yes. They are wild animals. They are living in the ocean. They do need to breathe, so they have to come to the surface. So they're going to do that regardless of weather. So of course you can see whales if it's raining. We don't know if it's raining and it's nasty weather. Maybe you don't want to be going out on the water to see them, but they will still be out there regardless of the weather.
And I always joke to people, I say the whales aren't worried about getting wet in the rain.
No, they already are.
They're already soaked, so it's all good. All right.
I'll draw for you. If killer whales run out of food, will they eat something else?
So this is in reference to the ecotypes. So we talked about how the Biggs killer whales are mammal eating and the salmon eating killer whales, obviously the resident killer whales eat salmon. And so a lot of people think, well, aren't they all just killer whales? They all just eat anything. And there is some ecotypes of killer whales that are generalists that eat mammals, and in the case of the Nordic killer whales will eat like mammals and herring. There's the ones in the Antarctic area. There's some generalist ones that will eat both penguins and marine mammals. So there are those killer whales out there. On our coast, generally no is the answer. The marine mammal eating killer whales are really just eating marine mammals. The salmon eating killer whales are better described as fish eating killer whales because sometimes they do eat halibut or other fish, but a vast majority of their diet, likely upwards of 80%, are salmon species and multiple salmon species.
But even within that, they do tend to specialize on those Chinook or spring salmon because those are usually, on average, the biggest and have the highest concentration of fat.
Just most bang for your buck. If you're going to chase down a fish, you want it to be the biggest one. I mean, that's what fishermen are doing all the time. So, mostly these animals are quite dietarily specific. It's not it's what they've been taught by their families. And so for our salmon-eating killer whales, we'll often see species such as Dall's porpoise or Pacific white-sided dolphins in and amongst the groups of killer whales, in and amongst the matrolines. Seems like social behavior, whereas these animals would be preyed upon by the mammal-eating killer whales. So obviously, if there was ever any kind of divergent snacking in the salmon-eating ones, these animals wouldn't hang around them. So that kind of tells you how much these animals feel safe being around the salmon-eating killer whales, and that kind of tells us that probably not really any cross snacking. All right, let's see here. 2 left. Which animals might I see while I'm out on the water / near Telegraph Cove or in BC?
This is a great question. So often it depends on the time of year. Year-round, you can see harbor seals. If you're lucky, you'll see some Dall's porpoise. They're not going anywhere. You might see some Pacific white-sided dolphins. You may see, if you're lucky, a humpback whale. However, in the summer is when you really have the best chance of seeing some marine mammals. From mid-July to mid-August and into September, you have a really good chance of seeing the northern residents. But of course, they're traveling wherever the food is, so this is by no means a hard, fast rule. This is just when we usually see them.
And they can show up one day and have amazing sightings one day and then be gone the next day. These animals can travel really quickly and far distances, so just because the reports were good yesterday doesn't mean they're good today either. So this is a little bit like that question of when do we let the whales out. It's really out of our control. You can pretty much always see anything. That's the amazing thing about being out on the water.
Yeah. However, on average, the species you're going to see are northern resident killer whales or those Biggs killer whales. You can see humpback whales. You can see minke whales, although they're pretty sneaky, so you have a lower chance of seeing them. You're very likely to see Dall's porpoise in summer. They're all over the place. You'll recognize them by, looks like a black rolling square through the water. They're really fun. You can see harbor porpoises, you can see Pacific white-sided dolphins, stellar sea lions. We did a video on one of those earlier, although hopefully the ones you're seeing are alive.
Yeah, that was not so for that dude.
No. And you can also see harbor seals. So those are going to be the species of marine mammals we have around here. We do occasionally have others passing through. There have been reports of, there was a sperm whale a couple springs ago.
Random beaked whales sometimes will show up.
Northern elephant seals, California sea lions, although this is a little far north for them, but we still see them. So there's a whole bunch of different species, but killer whales, humpbacks, dolphins, and porpoises are kind of our bread and butter.
Yep. All right, I get the last question.
Yep. What is the difference between seals and sea lions?
Perfect question to finish on. How many times a day do you think we answer this
Oh
one?
man, too many.
Too many.
We can recite this in our sleep at this point.
Yeah, so this is a really excellent question, and it's one that is, as we said, gets asked a lot. So there are three main physical differences between the seal and sea lion, one of which is kind of a cheat. In our waters, around, say, Telegraph Cove, Nanaimo, the most common species to observe are the harbor seal, Pacific harbor seal, the stellar sea lion, and the California sea lion. With this, you can cheat and use size, in that the sea lions are going to be bigger than the seals. However, globally, this is not the case. Many more seal species are larger than the stellar sea lions, which are the largest of the sea lions. But the tried and true, you're looking at their ears and their flippers. So this is really easy to see when we're in the Whale Interpretive Centre and we've got our side-by-side skeletons. It's much more apparent, but we'll do our best. So the sea lions are able to walk on land. They can kind of move these front flippers and move and articulate their back flippers as well. These guys can actually reach fairly decent speeds on land. Whereas seals, they cannot walk with those back flippers. They're dragging themselves with their front, and they're also getting up some speed and doing like a worm-like motion. There's a verb for that. It's called galumphing, which is a hilarious word.
It's maybe my favorite word.
It is a good word. So, and you can look up lots of YouTube videos of that too, of like see them kind of get that roll going. So that's one way to tell them a difference is the articulation of their legs. The other is ears. So sea lions are also known as eared seals because they have the pinned outer ear flap. Seals do not. It's just smooth. And sea lions do have actual outer ears just like we do. So those are the main differences between seals and sea lions. If you're in British Columbia, you can kind of cheat and go by size, but you never know when an elephant seal is going to show up, and then that method doesn't work. So better to go by the ears. Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really hope to see you in person at Telegraph Cove, but if not, then we'll keep visiting you through your devices.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.